What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's a direct retelling of sworn testimony from day 5 of the explosive federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press. But warning, this goes way beyond music deals or rocky breakups. This dives into something buried, twisted, and unforgivable. For the first time ever, Cassie Ventura laid bare what she says she saw with her own eyes beneath Diddy's LA estate. It wasn't a wine cellar. She spoke about underground corridors, secret chambers, masked women, and a man high out of his mind, leading her deeper into darkness. Some graphic details have been censored for YouTube guidelines, but what remains is already haunting the internet. The courtroom couldn't breathe, and what Cassie said could blow. Open the biggest celebrity cover-up of the decade. Day 5, and something felt off. The atmosphere was different. Tense heavy, even reporters were in their seats early. The public gallery packed, jurors leaned forward. Nobody dared look away. Why? Because Cassie was coming back. And this time, it wasn't just emotional. It was evidence. She walked in, flanked by security. Quiet, pale, still. The judge's voice cut the room like a blade. Let there could show courtroom behavior will be enforced without warning. Then the questions began. But this time, the defense had a curveball. No more relationship drama. They jumped straight into the architecture of Diddy's estate. Layout cameras, restricted zones, and then the bomb dropped. Miss Ventura, have you ever been under the mansion inside? The tunnels. The room froze. A few gasps. Quickly swallowed prosecutors, barked objections, irrelevant. But the judge didn't flinch. Answer the question. Cassie looked down, inhaled deeply. Yes, just one word. And the trial changed forever. 4 years. Reddit threads. Called it a conspiracy. Diddy's got tunnels. They laughed. Nobody took it seriously until now. The defense leaned in again. What did you see? Cassie blinked slowly. He told me. To follow him, he said it would explain. Everything, she said he was high, rambling, unstable. But she went anyway. He led me toward the pool behind some plants. There was a hidden hatch covered in leaves. It looked like part of the landscaping buttons you lifted its tears. Cold concrete stairs. She paused. What I saw down there? I don't think I leave her. Be able to unsee steel. Doors buzzing lights. No windows, no signal. Just her and Diddy, and something deeply wrong. It wasn't a panic room. It wasn't a safe. It felt like a lab or a set or a trap. And the room knew this wasn't going. Too be easy to hear. Cassie's voice didn't tremble, and somehow that made it worse. Her tone was calm, detached, like she had replayed this nightmare 100 times in her head. The hallway was narrow. Dead walls, no decor. Just lights humming above us like a hospital. The deeper we went, colder. Diddy kept talking to himself like he was preparing for something. He wasn't leading me, he was performing. She said she thought about running, but she didn't. He gave her that look, the one that said, don't even think about it. And then they reached a keypad door. He punched in a code. What opened was not a bedroom. It looked like a studio designed by someone with demons. Red lighting leather chairs bolted of the floor cameras in every corner. A scent she couldn't forget, bleach, wet and something rotten. Underneath, it wasn't a lounge. It wasn't even for people to hang out in. It looked like a place where people got broken. What Cassie described next didn't sound like some wild celebrity indulgence. It was cold, precise engineered, poor control. She said the room was part medical lab, part horror movie shelves, loaded with masks, restraint soils, latex bodysuits, untouched clothes, hanging like trophies on a rack. Mirrors covered both the ceiling and the floor. Soundproof foam lined the walls like it was built to erase screams. None of it felt playful, she said. It felt like domination, like ownership. The defense leaned forward. Did you ever see anyone else down there? Cassie froze for a moment, then answered, yes. She described two women, masked with expressionless. One was slumped on a couch. The other sat frozen beside a mounted camera. They didn't talk, didn't blink. Diddy called them performers. I wasn't introduced, Cassie added. I didn't want to stay. I told him I felt sick. She rushed back upstairs, locked the bedroom. Hours passed. Then Diddy showed up. He told me, you didn't see anything. You don't talk about it. That space is mine, not yours. Cassie never went back, but she remembered everything when pressed for more details. She delivered a killing floor plan. It wasn't just one room, she said. There were four total. One had no lights, just a metal bench and chains hanging from the walls. Another had a huge mirror across from a bed and some kind of digital panel built into the headboard. I didn't ask what it did. I didn't want to know. The third room was worse. One chair, a box full of tangled wires, no other furniture. That's when I told him I was done. I wanted out. But Diddy didn't argue. He grinned. He said, I wasn't ready that. It was too real for me. And just before he opened the last door, he whispered something that still haunts her. This is where I bring the ones I own. Behind that final door, Cassie heard what sounded like muffled music, except it wasn't music. It was voices, warped, distant, like a distorted live stream from a forgotten place. She didn't check. She couldn't. I didn't want to know who was inside. When she finally left, her body was shaking. Even after I showered, my skin still smelled like down there, in court. Cassie admitted. She never told anyone, not friends, not family, because I was scared. She said it felt like if it talked, I'd disappear, like those girls. The prosecution asked why she was finally speaking. Because this isn't just about me anymore, she said. He's still doing this, and if one more person goes down there and doesn't come back, she trailed off. The judge ordered access, but nobody moved. Nobody even blinked. This wasn't testimony anymore. This was a warning. When the court resumed, the focus shifted. The tunnels were behind them. Now the spotlight turned to what happened above ground, and it wasn't any less horrifying. The defense tried to pivot, tried to paint Cassie's memories as consensual kink. They pointed to a term that had already made headlines. Freak-offs. The phrase had popped up in old messages between her and Diddy. Flirty coded. Playful at first glance, but what did it really mean? Can you explain what a freak-off was? The defense asked. Cassie nodded slowly. It was scheduled like an event, always involved. Sex, sometimes with strangers, sometimes filmed. Roles were assigned. There were rules, there were drugs, and no room for no. She added that these weren't own-offs. They happened all the time, twice a month, sometimes more. Some were spontaneous, others booked. Like meetings, complete with invites, timing, and support staffs. Screenshots of texts were shown to the jury. Game starts at 10 DRP. No breaking character until 18 a.m. Bring candles, wear the red wig. And Cassie's response, she didn't deny. Participating, I said yes sometimes, she admitted, but being high isn't consent. I was too drugged to know what I was, agreeing to the prosecution. Stepped in to clarify. These weren't just bedroom games. They happened in 5-star hotels and yachts in his homes. Did any of these take place? In the tunnels, Cassie blinked, exhaled hard. Yes. She remembered one session vividly. He told me to wear a full body latex suit, to stay silent all night. If I broke character, I'd be punished. She didn't know the guests, and never gave names. They never showed their faces. Cassie told the courtroom. She was told to just trust him. One message, read aloud from Diddy's own phone. sent Akil down the gallery's spine. This time, I want full control. No safe word. She said after nights like those, she didn't even feel like herself anymore. I'd look in the mirror and not recognize who I was. She admitted deleting footage and pictures. Not from shame, but survival. I was terrified if I talked. I felt like something would happen. Something worse. Then came the question about substances. What drugs were involved? Cassie didn't. Flinch benzo. MDMA opioids. Sometimes weed, but mostly pills. I didn't ask. 4. She said he or his staff would hand them to her. Casually, he'd say, "It would help me relax." But they made Meslo obedient. One night in Miami, she woke up drenched in sweat. A camera light was still blinking. I don't know how. I got there. I don't know. Who else was in that room? Later, she started piecing it together. He wasn't just filming. He was archiving. He once said, "You're mine forever now." I thought it was romantic. Then I saw a video on his laptop. It was me with Tumen. I didn't remember it. She begged him to erase it. His reply, "I keep everything leverage, eyes power." Cassie said this obsession with control wasn't just in the bedroom. It infected everything. If she left the house without telling him, her phone would ring 50 times. If she didn't answer, he'd threaten her career, her life, her peace. Eventually, she believed instructed his team to cut off her supply. Friends stopped calling, assistants stopped helping. It was like he was building a world where I only had access to him, nothing else. No escape. Shivan tried checking into a luxury rehab facility disguised as a spa. He found out. He showed up, told them I was dramatic. I left the next day. The courtroom was dead silent as she admitted I tried quitting over and over. But as long as he was around, I couldn't. Then came the question. Everyone was waiting for, "Were you the only one?" Cassie shook her head. No, not even close. She described countless freak-offs with other women. Sometimes escorts, sometimes strangers, sometimes celebrities. They'd show up in cars. Some wore masks. Some were crying. I stopped asking questions. I was too scared. Shanamed Tiffany. Read a friend turned whistleblower as someone who had witnessed. The truth, Tiffany was at my birthday. She saw things, she told me. It wasn't normal, I didn't. Listen, years later, Tiffany wrote a letter, published in Rolling Stone exposing Diddy's behavior. She tried to warn people, but she got silence too. The prosecution asked Tiffany if Diddy's staff knew. Cassie nodded. His assistants were involved. They coordinated. They cleaned up. I don't know if they knew everything, but they weren't blind. One story stood out. One night his assistant walked in on us. He didn't flinch, just said, "Sorry, boss." The defense argued. This didn't prove anything criminal, but Cassie pushed back. This wasn't about sex. It was about obedience, about making sure we knew who had the power. When asked why it took years to speak up, her answer was immediate. Because we thought no one would believe us, because he's Diddy. She paused. But now the truth is out, and I'm not the only one talking anymore. But the worst was still to come. The prosecution transitioned into the next and most devastating part, physical violence. Did Mr. Combs ever lay hands on you? The prosecutor asked. Cassie looked down. Yes, too many times it began. With small things, he'd grip my wrist, shove me during fights, then apologizes, where it never happened again. But it always happened again. Photos were entered into evidence, acute above her eyebrow. That night, I came home late from dinner, just dinner. He thought I was cheating. He was drunk, paranoid, screaming I was supposed to pack for a trip, but I was tired. I passed out on the couch. I woke up to the pain. Another time, she said he kicked her in the back after reading a text message. He thought it was from someone I was seeing. It was Kid Cudi. She admitted she and Cutie briefly dated during a break, but Diddy never let it go. He used it as ammo. He'd bring it up to justify everything he did. Even when she tried to leave, he found ways to punish her. He'd send threats through people close to her. I always felt watched, like no matter where I went, he was still in control. Why didn't she go to police? Because I thought they'd laugh. He had money power I didn't. Then she dropped the final blow one night. After a fight, he threw me off a boat in the Caribbean. He said I was dead. Wait, Cassie swam to shore and still went back. That moment hit like a thunderclap. One juror visibly recoiled. Others blinked rapidly, as if shaking off a spell. The judge paused the session, but it was too late. Cassie had said the one thing that stripped all ambiguity. This wasn't metaphor. This wasn't rumor. This was real, physical brutalibus. When court resumed the prosecution, lulled her gently into what's now being called the Intercontinental Incident. Not internet, hearsay, not fan speculation. This was the night that changed everything. This was the night. Before your film premiere, the prosecutor asked. Cassie nodded. Yes, I had waited years for that film. I was proud. I wanted to celebrate. But Diddy had other plans. He pushed for one last freak-off, said it was tradition, said it would reconnect them. I said no, Cassie admitted, but he kept insisting. I didn't want to argue. Igave, she was told, it would be just. Then she was driven to the Intercontinental Hotel, but when she stepped into the suite, it was already full. 2 women, 1 male dancer, candles, cameras, latex and silence. I knew what it was. He handed me a pill, told me it would help me relax. I was exhausted. I took it. She remembered. Fragments. Masked dancer moving. Diddy holding a phone. Her reflection in a mirror slurring words she didn't recall saying. Then blackout. She woke up drenched alone. I checked my phone. He'd texted, you were amazing. I'm proud of you. She didn't know what he meant. She didn't ask. She showered, put on makeup, stepped onto their carpet with bruises hidden beneath. Her gown smiled for cameras, pretended. Everything was fine. The prosecution showed texts from that very morning, Diddy still glowing. Want to do it again after. The after party, Cassie's response. I didn't reply because something in her had finally snapped. This wasn't a bad night. This was the breaking point. The next day, she boarded a flight to New York, alone. Diddy didn't follow for the first time in years. I could breathe. The final portion of her testimony was softer, not as explosive as tunnels or bruises, but more devastating. Because it answered the question, what happens after the lights go out? It tried to act like it never happened. It told friends we just drifted. But I was falling apart. Inside, she went to therapy, and then came the flashbacks, faces, rooms, nights. She thought she'd erased. Then she filed the lawsuit, civil court. It came fast. It settled faster. It wasn't for money. It was for the record. I needed something to say. I wasn't crazy. It happened. But that lawsuit shattered the dam. Other women came forward, anonymous accounts, verified complaints, and then the FBI raid. Federal agents hit Diddy's properties, looking for trafficking. Evidence, control, coercion, the files remained sealed, but whispers exploded online. Underground spaces, recording, files, vaults. Cassie refused media interviews. I didn't want to be a hashtag. I just wanted to be free. But now here she was in federal court, on the record, under oath, and when asked what she wanted from all this accountability, she said, not just for me, for every woman who walked into that house and came out different, for every girl who vanished into those tunnels and never spoke again. Then it was over. The judge dismissed the jury. No cameras inside, but it didn't matter because outside that courtroom, the world already knew. Something irreversible had just happened. Cassie Ventura didn't just testify. She shattered the illusion. She cracked. Opened the world behind the celebrity curtain. And no matter how powerful the names, the truth is out now.